Hello there. Now today's video is all about mechs, and if you didn't see yesterday's video, I did complete my Ahsoka mock collection with a Marok mech, but I'm not here to show that off, just to advertise the video I guess, as today the first mock we'll be looking at is Vader. We will also be upgrading not only Vader but also Hulk, Thanos and Wolverine that you saw in my review recently, so very mech heavy content on this channel, but don't worry, it'll branch out into other things soon. And I have in fact already upgraded the left hand side, or as we're both looking at it, the right hand side of all my mechs. So you can see Vader here can bend his arm a full 90 degrees, and of course it was actually pretty easy with Vader, as I think there was one piece you had to take away and the rest was just switching out this bottom plate. So let's take a look at how I upgraded Vader. So the first thing you want to do is remove your arm, as the rest of the mech is pretty much, at least for now, staying as it is. There is definitely one more improvement I'll be making, but the main improvement relies on the arms. So these are the pieces I used for the arms. You can see they're all black, so I will actually pull them apart so you can see it. I've got a black hinge plate here, and all I've done is gotten a round 2x2, one of the bottom tiles that you'll see on a few of the different ships, and a 2x2 plate only for the right arm. The left arm did just use two of these, but as we want to be clipping his saber back on, we definitely need that 1x2. If I gave it a bit more light, perhaps we'll see the different pieces. As you can see a bit clearer now, we've got the black hinge, we've also got the 2x2 round bottom tile, and we've got the 2x2 plate that goes on like that. That just enables the arm to be bent 90 degrees and allows it to be straightened, and neither of these bricks collide. Now, to lock the pieces in, we just need a 1x1 square stud. I suppose you could use a round stud, and again, these are black because of Vader's arms black, and I think it just better represents the underside than this grey brick here. It would have been lovely to see him in black, especially not only for Vader, but also perhaps for the Stormtrooper. White was definitely a better colour for the Stormtrooper, but I suppose building my Emperor, Luke and Marok mechs, black would have just been handy for all of them. So we want to clip off this lightsaber, which, like I showed you in the Vader mech review, does clip off very easily, and this is the piece we will be replacing. So this piece will be gone, but the rest we want kept. So if you carefully hold this bar with open ends on the hand, you are actually able to pop off the whole hand. Sometimes a piece might fall, I kind of clipped that in properly enough, but you can see the whole front of the arm has just popped off. And again, I'll show you with the back, if you try to hold this grey bit on the bottom and pop off the arm using this grey bit, the whole arm stays intact. And now we can just remove that piece. Now, I said we were removing one piece. I guess if you include this, we're removing two pieces, as the only piece you need to remove is this stud here, as it causes a bit of tension when the arm is open fully, and just so it is a legal technique and doesn't strain the bricks, we will also be removing that one stud. So how do we connect them to the arm? Well, you can see on both sides we've got this 1x2 gap on both of the bottom plates or tiles, and we just clip that to the underside of the upper arm. So you can already see there is that gap in the middle there, which allows these bricks to turn quite nicely. And once we add on this lower bit to the arm, you can see that that gap is soon filled. This is actually one of the nicer designs for the arms, as LEGO have really put some thought in it to cover this round bit here. But not only that, when I switch that piece to a hinge, it also covers up that gap quite nicely. You can sort of see there is still that gap on the inside, but from the top down or side view, it just looks like a straight black arm. It works very well, and I really do like this piece. Perhaps I have to pick up some other colours for my other mechs, as it does really well to bridge that gap. And you can see we've tiled it off on this side. On this arm, they've actually both been tiled off on the bottom, but of course, as I said, we do want Vader to hold his lightsaber again, so you can just get the saber exactly how LEGO made it and clip it right back on to the hand. And you can see this black element makes it look like the thumb is coming down over it, and you've still got the fingers around the hand, and this arm just clips back, and there you go. You've customized your Vader mech. It really is as easy as that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and even then you could use this stud to replace one of them black squares, perhaps this one, as it's below the other. So there's 4 pieces you need for each of the arms, and now you've got as much movement as really you could ever want. So it's a lot nicer, as Vader can have like his arm by the side and really bring that saber up when he's engaging in a duel. Now you can see for my saber, this isn't Vader's saber. This is a blaster piece, and yes, it is, but there is a good reason that I have used this element, and it's because of my custom Luke uses the same blaster piece in green. Now, I do have a blue one, I have even a black one, so in theory I could make the Darksaber and perhaps an Anakin mech of some sort, which will go well with Vader, but I've given them the green and red blaster elements just so I can set them up in a duel and Luke's doesn't look too out of place because of Vader having the same one. So you can create a clash with it, and I'm sure next year we'll be getting some rebel heroes to combat the Empire, though I would like them to branch away from original trilogy, and wouldn't mind if instead of Vader and the Boba and Stormtrooper we get Anakin with Rex and a clone. I mean, putting Rex in a mech after putting him in the UCS Venator is really a very silly idea from LEGO, so I'm sure they won't, but it would be nice, especially to get that minifigure at this mech price tag. Now, of course, we're not done with Vader, so there's no point bringing him away from screen, as this back bit is really just an eyesore from on top. I mean, it makes Vader look very thick, which isn't great. I mentioned with the Marvel Mechs that did a similar design to this. I'm not too sure why they branch out so much at the back, as it just makes their back arch, and perhaps Vader has back problems himself with everything he's been through, but we will be removing this, which is completely something I'm doing out of my own preference. So if you don't mind these pieces back here, you really don't have to move them. The main upgrade was of course the arms, but I'll be taking these off and just replacing it with one of these 3x6 black wedges, which definitely will cover the grey back of the mech and just gives it a better colour to represent Vader, as grey's not really his thing, and he is definitely the Sith Lord dressed in the black leathery robes, so it just completes him and also builds out his silhouette from the front, leaving the gaps filled from his waist. So it looks cool. I mean, I have reconstructed this back piece itself in Lego bricks. Obviously, I didn't have enough to just reuse all of the mech pieces, and I only have 4 of these back pieces as they're new to the Star Wars mechs. But you can brick build it, much like many of the new pieces coming out. I mean, even Mando's N1 Starfighter had a piece central to its core that could have just been bricked out. So again, perhaps I can show you that in a future video if that's something you are interested in, but I've pulled off this whole back piece and now this can be used for something else. I mean, it's even a little like boat in its own right, so that can be put aside and you can see all the spare pieces we have from this Vader mech. So I hope you enjoyed building this one. I'm sure many of you will be putting these bendable arms into practice. Even if it's not my design, you can work around this and build your own, as of course it's Lego, that's what it's here for. So on to the next mech. And for the next one we have the Incredible Hulk. Now the main difference you can probably see right away is the hairpiece for Hulk. I have switched it out, as I feel like the hairpiece they gave him really didn't represent the Hulk, and even looking back at the original Incredible Hulk, it didn't really look anything like him. So instead, I whacked that hairpiece on my Tony Stark, which you might see in an upcoming video. And this hairpiece here is the one they use for Finn, and I'm not really sure which other characters. So I've just taken one of them that I had laying around and whacked it on Hulk, and it just better represents him, especially in the mech. It just looks like it was meant to be. And again, I have already customized the right arm so you can see the movement in it, and if you'd like to replicate it, I will be building the left arm again for you to follow along with so that you too can build it at home. And in my last video where I reviewed the 3 mechs, I did talk about longer videos, and I just feel like these videos are useful to so many of you that it is worth spending the extra time showing you how you too can build these mech upgrades, and they really do upgrade the mechs. So by the looks, what I have done is, again, you sort of got to pull the arm apart a lot more than the Vader mech, so this might be a bit tricky, but I'll try to take it slow so that you can follow along too and the arm piece does stay as it is. So, well, this hand piece at least. So we can take that off, put that to the side, and this is a bit more complicated to take off because of this bottom piece. So you're going to want to try and grab this green piece here, pop off most of it, but as you can see, the grey piece has been left behind and this green piece. So we won't be needing this arm piece, and that enables us to use it for perhaps another custom mech. I'm not sure who in Star Wars has green legs, but even in Marvel, there's going to be someone that I can use that for. So we have these 3 parts of the arm, and as you can see, these are the spare pieces that I used to create the arm. So we've got the green hinge piece, we've got a green 2x2, a green 2x2 corner piece with that corner cut out. We've got a green slope and 2 green studs. Now, really they can be any colour. As you can see, LEGO have used a range of colours when building the arm. You've got about 3 different greens here. So really any of the greens work, and even if you had a darker green, you'd be able to use it, as it just looks like a different texture to the arm. Even brown you'd get away with. A brown stud would just look like a bit of dirt, and you don't have to replicate it on the arms, as I'm sure no one's arms are exactly identical. But of course, as it's a mech, I'll be trying to keep it as identical as I can. So the first thing we're doing to Hulk's arm is to take off this light green 2x3 modified plate. Again, I'm not quite sure what they are. They're toilet plates to me, as this is what I always saw in the LEGO City as the bowl of the toilet, perhaps a little 2x2 round plate on top. If you've known LEGO for that long, then let me know in the comments, as there were some really good techniques with some really common pieces. And what we'll want to replace it with is this 2x2 corner piece, which will just slot in right here, and you can see we've got the joint on the right side and the corner piece angled as so. And this is going to be the basis for our hinge piece. You want to make sure you've got the hinge the correct way around. So this extra bit is pointing up, I suppose, compared to pointing down, as you want the arm to be able to curve up and not bend backwards. And then the last thing we want to do before reapplying that green piece is to put a stud just on the top here, on top of our corner plate. And as I said, this green piece just goes on top like this. Make sure you don't put it, in fact, I'm even using the wrong piece. It's this 2x2 green plate. You want to put it just like that, and that enables this arch piece to go back over the top and just hold it all firmly, as well as show off Hulk's giant muscles. So now for the hand, it's a little easier, as the hand just clips on as so. You've got that one stud connection, which isn't the strongest, and that is why we drop a stud next to it and reinforce it with this light green piece. This is where it's used, and that just shows off a lighter palm to Hulk, which makes sense. Usually people's palms are lighter than the rest of their skin on their arm, and it just also covers that one gap that we'd normally get if we didn't use it. And we do have the little green wedge that just fills up that gap and means that you've still got somewhat of an arch to the arm, and when it's bent you can see the elbow. And that is all to the arm. That is it. There is nothing more to it, and the arms click on both like so. Be sure when you're pulling arms on and off that you don't hold this piece here. I've made the mistake in pretty much all of my reviews when trying to put it together, as this piece just pops off, and it is quite a fragile piece. I'm not sure it will exactly break, but it's definitely not going to be beneficial for it. And now that we've got the hinge pieces for the arms, you can see Hulk can definitely wave this around a bit more and definitely get it above his head. I mean, the best angle he could get was probably about that beforehand, which isn't great considering the arm stops pivoting there. But once you've got it bent, he can really lift it up and just pelt it again. I decided to keep the hip action on both Hulk and Thanos. I played around with it so much in the review, and once I stopped recording, I was just sat here swiveling it, and you can see he's getting ready to throw it. It's just a really good play feature. So there's nothing wrong with the hips, and if it isn't broke, don't fix it. But you can see we end up with 2 of these spare, and all the other pieces have gone back into the arm. So again, I'm showing you the spare pieces at the start, but don't forget you are going to need double of this and repeat it the same on the other side. Perhaps I can upload instructions to this at some point, especially as we're nearing 500 subscribers. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. and join the 501st, me and my first 500 subscribers. It's a little thing that now I've adopted. But of course, we're only halfway through the video, so thank you for watching. Drop a like if you made it this far, and let's get on to the Thanos mech. So for Thanos, I ultimately decided to leave out this piece here on the front. I still feel it just looks a bit too bulky, so all I've done is replaced it with a 1x2 brick, and realistically you could even just keep this blue bracket plate in and take off the golden top and just whack the printed tile back on. It still sticks out a bit, but the printed tile definitely looks better than a flat 2x2, and I definitely think it doesn't take anything away, and just having this on top bulks it out a bit and just shows it off a bit too much, and I really want it to be kept as not noticeable as possible. And now that you've seen the side of the arm, you can see I have changed the gauntlet to be on the end of Thanos' hand. I can see why LEGO had it on the side popping out of his arm, especially with the plate they used, which only gave it about that much of an angle. But with the upgrade that I'm just about to show you, he can fully bend his arm 90 degrees, and that looks great for the moment where he snaps. Again, the arm's on a ball joint, so you can even curve it a bit more just to get that prime position for the click. But I'll be showing you the upgrades I make on this arm, and I was going to upgrade these fingers too. They definitely creep me out a bit more than the other stubs we get on the Star Wars ones, but ultimately it's what LEGO have decided with, and it's not too big an upgrade. Again, at home, if you want, you can switch these out. So I don't have any in gold, and I'm not sure the wedge plate exists in gold. For now, I'm just going to keep them as they are. They don't hurt me enough that I have to change them, but let's take a look at this arm and see what upgrades I've made so that I can replicate it on the other side. So you can see here are all the spare pieces I have used, and much like with the Hulk, I said about using different colours. I haven't been afraid to include a different shade of pink and sort of this reddish pink in the figure. As you can see, they're just little bits of veins, and added a bit more texture to the arm. Again, if you have the purples, you can use them, but not only did I not have a purple 1x2, also I just wanted to use a bit more colour to give it a bit more texture to his arms, as they're really muscly and veiny in the movie. You can see the hinge piece is somewhat covered by this sort of angled sloped tile here, but there is a little gap in there for his elbow which enables it to bend. It's sort of covered up, and perhaps you could even tile off this grey piece just to hide it, but it's not that big a sore for me. So let's replicate it on the other side. Much like Hulk, we have again this plate on the bottom, so we've got to try and remove this brick without taking apart the arm too much. So if you grab the arm by this side bit here, you can pop off most of it. It's a shame that the 1x4 has stayed, as we'll definitely be needing to put that back onto the arm. And try to keep the arm as fully formed. Again, if you do manage to crumble the arm or break it at some point, don't bother trying to put it back together by looking at it. Definitely refer to the instructions. The instructions are your best friend, so take a look, see how they've built it, and try and replicate that in your own manner. And with the hand, we do want to remove the weapon first, just so we don't crumble the hand. As again, with Star Wars and with all these Marvel mechs, the weapons just clip on as so. It's really pretty simple when you think about it, but it isn't always the easiest thing to pop on and off, as you never know when Lego's about to crumble. So again, we've got a spare piece in this grey bit here, and we've got roughly the 3 pieces for the arm. You can see the hand, the upper arm, and the part underneath. So if we take a look at this, you can see this grey bit has the 2x2 plate underneath it, and that is what this bracket piece is coming from. Remember, if you are building it from the other arm, you want to do everything the opposite way. So we're putting this grey hinge tile just like that on the other pieces we've added, and this is where the 1x1 in pink, purple, whatever shade you've chosen sits on it, just like so. And onto this we can clip the arm, but before we do, we just need to take off this end tile, and now we are able to clip it on just like so. Now before we work on this can go in our pieces tub. We'll get back to that in a minute, as first we want to look at the arm. So for the arm, we clip it on just like so, like we saw with Vader and with the Hulk mech that we've already looked at, and I'm sure I do a similar technique to the Wolverine mech. It's just the easiest way to have it, that one stud, and then securing it with Usually on this arm I've used that underside tile, which are definitely very handy, especially as you get them on so many ships, and half the time I replace them with either a translucent plate or translucent brick, so I'm able to take these off. And this time we are in fact putting the weapon across, so there's no need for an extra plate, no need for nothing like that. And the fingers curve around it quite nicely. You've got the thumb to grip it from behind, and of course the only thing we're missing is that slope plate on top. So you want to first put down your 1x2 tile again in whichever colour you've chosen, and then add the slope on top, and there we are. We've built the other arm. You can see it just adds that much more functionality to it, and it's definitely, I think, something I'd want to see on the mechs of 2024. So I'm really hopeful that LEGO managed to find a way to do it securely, and these are pretty solid. I mean, if I was just to throw this around and drop it a few times, you can see that the arms aren't falling off, and though it makes quite a racket, especially when my mic is also attached to the desk, you can see they're strong enough for children to be played with, and you can even swoosh them around by their hands, which that is ultimately LEGO's main goal, or one of LEGO's main goals, as well as making it look quite accurate. And these arm upgrades don't take away from the mech. You could see from the top it still looks like Thanos, and from the side it's still got all the purple. You could say underneath looks a bit odd, especially with the different greys, but you only had this grey piece under there anyway, so as long as they're not making it colour accurate underneath, perhaps you could even use the accurate colours like I did with Hulk, using green pieces underneath. But I really do like the fact that you can now move the arms, and it's an upgrade that for me was really needed for the mechs. Now, of course, our next mech upgrade comes for Wolverine, who definitely needs quite a bit of upgrading. You can see one of the pieces we've got here is actually the piece that we've got from the other mechs taken away, and we are going to need two. This is for the leg upgrades, but we'll get to that in a minute. You can see the side by side Wolverine's right or left side, as we're looking at it, is completely as it was when the mech came out, and this other side is what I've upgraded. It does look a bit more cool, especially with using that longer leg piece. Now, originally when I got the Star Wars mechs, I was looking at upgrading this and adding a hinge in here, and I decided that this was in fact the best piece to use for the lower half of the mech. So I'm very happy that LEGO have chosen it, and in fact in upgrading this Wolverine mech, I've also chosen it to represent that leg piece just that much better, and it really does give the mech so much more of a figure than these sort of flimsy ball joints that again are shown, which does sort of ruin the mech. But of course we'll probably start with the arm, as it is quite complicated for the Wolverine mech. You can see it is quite different, and in fact I have changed the colour scheme to better match Wolverine, as he doesn't really have yellow sleeves, not, at least not on this minifigure. So I have added some flesh tone colours. You could get away with using yellow colours, but I think this, much like the Marok mech, I think this is actually one of the better ways of doing it. Of course, I'd have loved the Vader piece to have come in this fleshy colour, but I really like the way I've made this elbow joint, and we'll get to that in upgrading this other arm. Now, Wolverine barely stands as it is. You can see just how much longer the legs are going to be, but again, we'll get to that in a second, as this arm really needs a complete revamp. So first, I'm going to pull apart the pieces of this arm, get them all piled up, and then we'll start building the other one. And as you can see, the arm really did come apart a lot easier than I imagined, which perhaps isn't the best thing for a mech, but there was a lot of ball joints, so there's not much bricks to hold it on. And you can see I've already built the basis of the arm. I will be rebuilding this, but just to show you how the internal bit works, and these are all the custom pieces you will need. So let me pull this apart and just show you what exactly is here. So we start off with this grey plate, and you can see this grey hinge is what gives the elbows that bend and just enables it to be a bit more accurate to the actual figure. And you're going to want to put this 2x2 plate just like so right on the final stud, as we're used to seeing in all of the other mech upgrades. And you actually want to get this slope, which is just a 1x2 slope, and clip that right next to it, and that will go over the plate on the other side. Speaking of the other side, you want to get this corner plate here and just clip it like so. So you've only got, again, that one stud attachment, and put the 1x2 plate next to it. You can see how it's already shaping up just like the other arm, and you can see the fleshy bits are done, and even on the underside it's already starting to look like it before we add the mech's pieces. So for the underside, we want to start off with perhaps the arm rather than the hand, and we're just going to get one of these ball joint pieces and add it back to the top of the arm. Now originally I think this was holding one of the lower arm parts, so we're actually reusing a piece for a different purpose. And you want to get this yellow slope and just put it there, holding this piece firmly on, and we will further the attachment with one of these 1x2 black plates, which again are from our own collection. You can use yellow, you could use blue, you could get away with pretty much any colour. It is going to be on the underside at the back, which is why we've got this yellow plate here, just to hide it. And though it might look better in blue, yellow came with a set, we might as well make use of it. Now what we'll also do to further the support is add this black bracket on the end of this black 1x2 plate. You can see it's right next to the ball joint, and we've even got this blue bracket just on top, which again is just to secure this top plate down, and we can do that by adding this fancy tile on the side. These attach to the 3 studs of the bracket and just close up the arm a bit more round the back and add that little sleeve that Wolverine has. Now you can see there is a tile on the back bit, one of the sloped corner ones just underneath this bigger one. However, if I were to try and put this one there, you can see it folds the wrong way, and if I give you just a close-up of that, you can see it doesn't line up with the tile on the bracket and looks a bit odd. And that is because we're not using this piece, but rather taking the piece from the lower leg here. You can see we'll be switching them out and using this for the arm, and this piece will be used for the leg. Now we'll get to that in a minute, it won't be staying there, so you can feel free to whack that to the side. But now we've got the right angle, it closes up a bit more nicer and just finishes off the sleeve, which we will do by adding this bigger 2x2 sloped tile, which does hold on to the 3 studs, and that should stop this end slope from falling off. You can see that gives a nice finish to the top of the arm, as well as the fleshy style tan bricks which create the elbow. So all we've got left to do is the hand, which you can see is quite simple, but I have completely rehauled the design, as I'm not going to use this long skeleton arm as the thumb and rather have one of these sloped pieces. Now I suppose you could work the thumb into it if you did like the original model, but I'm going to be adding this thumb in instead. So we'll grab the original piece that held the fingers and whack that just at the end of the arm. Again, it matches up on the same level as the hinge in the LEGO system, so it's quite like all of the other mechs we've built, and you can choose to add the fingers on now or later though, just so it looks a bit better. I'm definitely going to choose to do it now. And this is where you add the thumb on top of it, and you've got the 2 studs on top. Now if you flip it over, you can see we've just got the black flat round tile on the bottom, which again I've done on all the mechs. It just holds the pieces in there, but before we put it on, we've got to get this one little stud and just fill the last gap we have. Again, any colour. Grey works with the gloves though. A tan or fleshy colour will also work for the arms. Now you can see Wolverine is still missing his claws, so we're going to put the arm to the side for 1 second and build the claws on top. Now I haven't found the last Wolverine's claw. I've sorted through all my Lego now, so it is officially a missing piece. I've contacted Lego, they've sent one out, and perhaps I'll update you when it arrives, but for now he does have a little stubby one, which I've used a meat cleaver from my Lego City figures, and it does look very odd, but for now gives him an extra claw, which definitely looks odder without. So if you notice that, it's a bit of fun for now. But we do want to grab this blue wedge plate and make sure it's angled opposite to the other one. You can see we want it angled towards the elbow with the flat side on the fingers. So hopefully I'm able to explain this well if you are trying to replicate this at home, and if not, I hope you enjoy me building it at least, as I definitely had a lot of fun last night staying up and trying to plan out all the different things I could do to upgrade each of the mechs. And all I've done here is put on the little 1x1 black tiles with the little clip on top, and that enables me to clip in all 3 of Wolverine's blades. Now, the original mech had this end one hanging out a bit, and I really didn't like it. So what these 2 studs are going to do is go into these 2 holes in the center of the plate here and offset it by half a brick in each direction. You can see half a brick of plate is hanging out this side and even a little bit over here. And all that does is lines up the claws with Wolverine's fingers. So it looks like they're coming out between the knuckles, as Wolverine's mech does only have 3 fingers. So really he should only have 2 blades. But to keep it accurate to the character, I've added the 3 blades. Perhaps you could try and add an extra finger, and if you do, let me know how that goes down in the comments. But for now, I think that captures him very nicely, and we've got the fleshy arms. However, the Wolverine minifigure we've got here doesn't have the blue sleeve. So what can we do? Well, if we take a look at the Wolverine we got in the CMF line, you can see not only does it have the blue tops to the arms, but also the individual hairs on the arms of Wolverine, which are definitely a lot of detail that LEGO really didn't need to include, but they did anyway. So we're going to pop off the arms of this Wolverine figure. Now, if you don't have the CMF Wolverine figure, this is a completely optional upgrade, and I did look at using the figure from the CMF line. However, because it is in that brighter shade of yellow, it does mean that it doesn't match well with the mech, and I have included on the leg one of these brighter plates, as I didn't own any of these color plates. But you can see that even just by adding the arms, it improves it so much. And it would have been nice to use the leg piece, but again, it's got that other yellow on it, and I didn't want to mix the yellows. You perhaps can't see it as well on camera, but I hope you can see a slight difference between the yellows, as this Wolverine definitely wouldn't go with the mech. So we'll put these pieces to the side, but the arms definitely look good on this Wolverine. So we'll put Wolverine back in his mech, and now he can have his arms back as we look to focus more on the legs. But giving it the 90 degrees just looks so good, especially for Wolverine, someone whose weapon is in his hands quite literally. And you can't rotate these blades. It's not something you can spin around and attack at different angles. They're just in the hand. So for him to be able to have his arms by his side and his claws facing forward just looks a lot more accurate to the character. Now, before I wrap up this video, of course, we've got to move on to the legs. So again, I hope you enjoyed this longer style of video. I'm just trying to get all of these upgrades in the one video, but you can see just how different the legs are. This one definitely looks a lot smaller and a lot weaker than the new one I'll be building. And for the most part, the foot does actually stay the same. The only difference to the foot is taking off this blue tile underneath with the studs on top and putting on a grey 2x2. You could switch it for a blue one. However, the sole is mostly grey, so I've just wanted to include that on the rest of the leg, and I have done that to both feet. So again, you'll need 2 of that piece. And now we can start building the leg. We'll start off with this main piece here, which I don't actually think I've got any of the pieces for, so give me 1 second. I completely forgot about these hinge pieces. Again, most of the time when I'm brainstorming this, I am sat next to my drawers, so I tend to just pick up the pieces as I'm thinking of them, and sometimes I forget to jot them down. But you can see I've used these hinge pieces rather than the ones that come with it, as it just enables me to embed these into the leg piece here, and it creates a 2-plate thick leg hinge piece. And all we want to do for this is, for the upper leg, is pretty easy. We just take this piece here and add it to the outer leg at the top. If you're ever wondering which part is the outer leg, inner leg, upper leg, usually if you get the hinge piece like this, the studs will always be out and this bulky bit will always be in the middle. So of course this will be Wolverine's right leg, and if we flip it, it's now Wolverine's left leg. But of course we're building the right leg, so you want these and the upper inner bit right at the front of the leg, and this is taken straight from Wolverine's original leg, which not much will be after here, as this bracket piece and whatever this contraption is down at the bottom would be very hard to just simply take across. I guess this one would work, however I don't think we'll be using this black piece. So this can go back in the tub for now. And we also have the bracket, so be sure to take off these blue pieces before you try and take apart the brackets, as they just won't come off otherwise. But I'm going to break this down before I show you the next steps, just so we've got all of our pieces lined up. And you can see I haven't removed the pieces from the arm that we broke down, as some of them pieces will also be useful in building the leg. For instance, the tile we took off the foot does clip to the inside lower of the leg, and that just enables the other part of the boot to come up the side. Again, it'd be nice if this piece here was perhaps in blue, or we could get some door molded blue and yellow. It's a bit extra for a mech, especially at the price range, but again, it would just be nice to get. And on the inside, we're going to want to place this 1x2 plate from the leg. Now, to finish off the boot, what we're going to do is grab the tiles that were on the brackets of the original leg and just place them at the bottom here. And if my camera focuses, you'll see exactly what I mean. Just giving it that outline of the boot, and also covering this grey piece here, which is very hard to do. On the other side, we don't have many pieces. I didn't want to use too many pieces from my own collection, so we're just going to whack that plate in there. The stud fits very snugly. It's, I'm sure, a legal technique, as we've only got that one stud connection, and LEGO is a bit iffy with connecting studs into more of these Technic holes and rounded holes in general, as you're not meant to be able to connect multiple studs into like the side of a Technic brick, for instance, just because it doesn't stress the bricks, but the force used to get it in and the force needed to take it out, it's a lot for a play toy, and it's such a strong connection that it might actually damage the brick removing it. This stud here is fine, it's not going to do any harm, and you can easily get a brick separator and pluck it out. Though if you were to do, say, 4 studs in the side of a Technic brick, you're going to need a lot of force, and I'm sure a brick separator might even struggle to pull it out. So you'll have to resort to like pliers or something, and then you threaten damaging the brick. So be careful how you use them bricks. Though I'm sure none of you plan on using Technic bricks in most of your mocks, as usually Technic bricks are quite hard to include, and it's easier to include the snot bricks, which are one of my personal favourites. So the next step is to place this yellow wedge just on the side here, as so. And all we're going to do with this 1x2 plate is cap off the top, so we can then file off the studs with these yellow ingot pieces, which were included in both the arm and the leg, and just finish it up nicely, giving Wolverine more of a bulky leg. And that is it for the pieces of this mock, or I guess more of a alternate or modification, that's the word I'm looking for, than a mock, as the rest of the build is definitely LEGO's own, and I'm only altering the build slightly to make it better posable, a lot more movable. And I've even mistakenly put this slope on the wrong side here. You can see that it does just finish the legs off, and they look a lot better than the original model. And perhaps even you could flip these pieces here and just have them coming down to create more of a bulky thigh for Wolverine and show off his lower muscles, I guess. But either way, they both look just as cool, and this mech in general definitely looks a lot better than it originally did. I'll leave a picture up on the side to compare it to the original model. And again, that's all we're doing to Wolverine. The rest of the mech, as far as I'm aware, is as good as LEGO could have made it. The back, a little bulky perhaps, but we didn't have the pieces that we now have for Star Wars, so you could recreate that on the back. And if you do want to see how I recreate the Star Wars plate, then just let me know in the comments, and I'm sure I'll add it into one of my future videos. And I'll definitely do a video again showing off all my mechs, as I've got a custom one in the works. It's just at the planning stage right now, but I have a whole back row on my shelf of mechs, and definitely like what LEGO are doing. So I'm excited for the new year, what we'll get to see, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. But taking a quick look at all of the other mechs that I've edited in today's video, you can see that they all just look a bit more nicer, I guess, a bit cooler now that they've got their arms, and it just gives them a bit more posability to what they originally had. And again, it's another play feature. You're not going to be sitting these on your shelf just to play around with moving their arms. When you've got them in your hand, you'll definitely be posing their arms, and You can even switch up their poses, creating different ones like the Thanos snap, or perhaps Wolverine stabbing someone. And even Hulk can lift the part of the city further above his head than before. So all in all, they are some really cool upgrades, and let me know in the comments if you decide to make some of these of your own, especially with the new Star Wars ones. Again, I've already shown off my Stormtrooper and you've seen my Boba briefly at the start of yesterday's episode. If you'd like some more instruction based videos on how to build each of these sets, I can even upload them, and perhaps that is a cool way to upload all of my instructions as videos. Let me know down in the comments. Be sure to like this video if you did like the video, and of course don't forget to subscribe, otherwise you'll miss out on awesome content just like this. And I'll be building plenty of mocks, reviewing plenty of sets, and keeping you up to date on all the LEGO news to come. So hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, or don't. All videos go live at 12 o'clock UK time. And of course, as always, may the bricks be with you.